Mr. Joe Brezny, the spokesman for Regulate Marijuana in Nevada.
Hello? Okay, here we go. All right, let me start my timer, or I will just talk. So, thank you guys for having me tonight. Really appreciate it. It's nice to be back. I was here 2 years ago doing the same thing when we were having a debate about whether or not to have medical marijuana in your community. So I'm Joe Brezny. It's kind of funny, you've got two Republicans here. I'm a nonpartisan now, but marijuana is not really a partisan issue anymore. But it's something where, like I said 2 years ago, I feel like marijuana prohibition's been a really expensive failure, and I feel like regulation's a better way. So let's dig into what this does. What the for enforcement, regulatory costs, creates jobs, reduces teen access to marijuana, increases consumer safety, and ends marijuana prohibition. That last point is actually the most important one because when people ask me in a nutshell, why are you doing this? You look like such a clean-cut, respectable man. Why are you doing this? And the answer is that marijuana prohibition punishes people who are choosing to consume a substance that's less harmful than alcohol. It's less toxic to your body, it's less addictive, and it's far less likely to be associated with violent or criminal behavior. And so because of those things, it doesn't make any sense that we put this in this special criminal class and called this something that we need to prohibit versus something that is more dangerous on multiple fronts that we've seen that prohibition failed, and it is better to regulate it. So some things that the initiative doesn't do. It doesn't allow for public use. You're not going to have people lighting up on every corner. It doesn't change the existing DUI laws, and that's important because Nevada has the toughest DUI laws in the country right now for marijuana. We have a 5 nanogram cutoff, the threshold to test. The threshold, if you want to have a license to drive a train for the federal government, is 50 nanograms. So our level is 10 times more aggressive than what the federal government tests to drive a train. So it is the toughest DUI law in the country. That doesn't change. And that kind of touches on the DUI argument overall as to what happens. You're going to have stone drivers on the roads if this passes, is what the opponents are saying. But the thing that is showing to be true, and I brought the statistics with me, marijuana DUI is going down in Colorado, and they're going down in Colorado for a really simple reason. We're now earmarking more money toward going after these people and enforcing them. And they're realizing that if you were so irresponsible that you're going to fire up a joint and then get behind the wheel of a car, the fact that marijuana is slightly illegal and not at all hard to get isn't stopping you. So the folks that were going to make that irresponsible choice are making the irresponsible choice already, which is why we have a tough law and we police it already. It does not allow unlicensed individuals to sell marijuana. And not only does it not affect employers' current marijuana policies or restrictions, we actually have employer protections written into the act. And so just like you can have a policy where if someone drinks alcohol, even if they don't show up drunk for work, you can fire them. If you just say, I don't want any drinkers in my company, you can fire someone because they choose to drink alcohol on their own time, because it's not a protected class. It's not like race, religion, creed. It's something where being a marijuana consumer or an alcohol consumer doesn't get you protections. And so those employer protections are still there. And then it doesn't change one word of the medical marijuana law. So if you're a medical marijuana patient today, you're going to be a medical marijuana patient tomorrow. Doesn't affect it at all. And actually, it's a completely different chapter. This is a statutory measure, and the medical marijuana law is in our Constitution. Eliminating the criminal market. So right now, if you are not a medical marijuana patient in Nevada, 100% of the market is a black market. Everyone is the black market. And so improving upon that is, by definition, an improvement. So our existing marijuana laws basically incentivize drug dealers and cartels to sell this marijuana to whoever will take it, whoever is going to buy it. That's who they will sell it to. But if you think about it, some of the complaints from the other side are actually at odds with each other, because they talk about how I say that we have responsible, successful Nevada business people who are in this business already, and we should trust them to take the next step with adults over 21. They say it's rich guys and it's a handout to them. But the thing is, it doesn't make sense then that there would be less, it doesn't make sense then that there would be more risk to our kids under a regulated market, because if you have someone that is wealthy, and they've invested a lot of money in a marijuana business, and they want to continue to operate that business, they're not going to risk that license to make 12 bucks selling something to a kid. It makes absolutely no sense. The incentive right now for cartels and criminal gangs is for them to push marijuana into the schools and get the kids onto marijuana early. And the incentive for us is to meet with the police departments and show them, these are the products. This is what has a specific odor. This is what has specific packaging with specific radio frequency tracking in the packaging. And so we can align ourselves, and I've already had these meetings with law enforcement, a couple of police agencies in Vegas, and they look at me a little confused when I first walk in with my bag full of medical marijuana and talk with them about everything. And one guy just said, you know, I just kind of want to arrest you. And I laughed and I said to him, this is going to take your head off, but in a legal market, our interests are aligned. Our interests and the police interests are aligned, because if there's a black market grow, we want to eliminate it just as much as you do. If someone's marketing to kids and taking our products and giving them to kids, we don't want to put our license at risk. So we're going to work very hard to make sure that doesn't happen. And the cartels will never do that. The cartels don't care. They're never going to do it. So, eliminating the criminal market, what we're seeing, and these are the statistics that we're seeing, arrests for marijuana for people over the age of 18 are down 68%. Each one of those arrests for arrest prosecutorial costs is $1,000 to $2,000, and so that's a lot of money, 68% less at $1,000 to $2,000 a pop, and that's freeing up money to go after the remaining criminal market. And the remaining criminal market has shifted. Instead of having huge, massive cartel grows, they are exploiting the current criminal market in Colorado. I disagree that it is cartel driven. It's people who are exploiting their home grow law, because the home grow law in Colorado is much, much more permissive than the one in Nevada. And under this act, right now, you have restrictions for 25 miles for a patient unless there's a specific kind of medicine that they can't get at that dispensary within 25 miles. There is no exception under this. There's just a 25-mile, but you can't grow your own under this law, which is one of the chief complaints that we get about it from our activist community. But what that also does is the experts who came up with the 70% of the market, of the black market has been eliminated in Colorado, are saying that it'll be more like 90% of the black market here, because you won't have those phantom home grows because we don't have home grow. So I think it'll be an even more secure system here. And then, okay, so $1,000 to $2,000 per case. I'm going to do it on time. It's not letting me log in because it's not my thumb. There we go. Okay, I'm at 8 minutes. And since legalization of marijuana in Washington, violent crime has declined and the overall crime rate is at a 40-year historic low. So, economic impact. We have a 91-page study that we can get you guys that was done by an independent accounting firm. This is one thing. We made the model so conservative. The other side isn't even beating us up on the numbers, so that's great. But they're looking at, we will have a $1.1 billion overall economic impact with direct and indirect jobs, security jobs, advertising agencies, those kind of things. But a $1.1 billion overall economic impact, and then it'll create 6,200 new jobs, $60 million in tax revenue to the state, and $20 million net of tax revenue to the schools. And so, and we think that that promise will be kept. The $40 million that was promised to Colorado was, I actually brought an article with me. They produced $45 million in tax revenue as a net to the schools, and they spent the extra $5 million on a statewide anti-bullying campaign. I have the newspaper with me on that. So the economic impact there, $135 million from tax revenue in 2015 in Colorado, $83 million in Washington. And tourism is on the rise in both Washington and Colorado. The unemployment rate in Colorado is below the national average. Housing prices in Colorado are rising faster than both the national average and Nevada. 27,000 employees in the industry in Colorado. And like I said, they have one of the fastest growing economies in the country. And then another one of the scare tactics that we hear from the other side is, people are going to flee. We hear that two groups are going to flee. The first is they say that big businesses will no longer come here. Well, the evidence really doesn't support that, because 2015, Google broke ground on a 330 square foot development in Boulder, and then in Washington, Amazon broke ground on a new facility there. So big businesses are not being chased away by this. And then the other question that I got was, are you afraid of our tourists, of someone saying, I'm not going to come there for a conference anymore? And I was talking with some of the people in other states, and it made me realize that we forget what we have here. When I have friends that come visit, they tell me, when I get off the plane and I hear that bing, 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 the slot machine noise, is I know I'm in Nevada. And I told them, I said, you know what, I don't even hear that anymore. They said, how can you not hear that anymore? I said, what? We have a slot parlor at Albertsons. I mean, and yet my state of Nevada trusts me to not take my kids' grocery money and go spend it on video poker and to walk past the video poker machine. But I'll tell you, try and sell that idea in Alabama. Try and sell that idea in the Deep South. They would think that the devil is going to come take that money and take your kids' food money and take it away. But we've seen that we already regulate things here that a lot of states either chose not to do or have taken our lead. 41 states now regulate gaming because Nevada has the gold standard for gaming. And that's what we modeled this regulatory structure after, is the gaming structure. So we'll be creating more than 6,000 new tax-paying jobs, dispensary employees, and Colorado has created 10,000 new jobs since 2014 in the industry. Talking about teen and child safety, this is something I feel really strongly about. They talk about the out-of-state people coming in and invading for this. I've been in Nevada since 2001. I'm married to a third-generation Nevadan. We're raising two little fourth-generation Nevadans. And my daughter, in the public high school, she's been offered marijuana 3 times, and she's been offered alcohol 0 times. And it's because none of her friends have ID, but everyone knows the bad actors in school. I mean, that's how it was when I was in school. I couldn't get an ID until I was 21, but I knew the 3 kids who were selling weed. And so it's something where the barrier is not there because the criminal element puts no barrier there. And so I do this because I honestly believe this is a better way for my kids. And having that honest conversation about them, how just like mom has a glass of wine once in a while with dinner, or I have a beer after I work outside in the afternoon on a Saturday, having a reasonable consumption doesn't send a message to my kids that they should start drinking now. It's the same level of responsibility as parents that we have with locking up our liquor cabinet and locking up our opiate drugs and securing our guns. That's the same attitude that we try to instill in our patients with securing their marijuana with things like lock boxes that you can have that will, if someone is leaving their edible lying around, there's a real parenting issue there. And I would not only not want that person having access to this, I probably would not want them having access to even more dangerous things like opiate drugs and weapons. But teen and child safety is really, it's paramount. And what we see is that the industry will come to the table and participate in the regulatory process. And so what we have already, and because we meet every other year, this has not passed yet, but we have a bill draft that's already been submitted by a Democrat and a Republican co-sponsoring it, and this will put in the toughest edibles regulations in the country. Square shapes, no bright colors, no fruit shapes or animal shapes, and child-proof packaging required with everything. So it's something where we've had edibles for 40 years. It's just they had a different name before. Back with Woodstock and hippies, they just called them pot brownies. But when you saw a pot brownie, you didn't know if all of the THC from the pot butter was in one brownie or if it was evenly spread throughout. Most hippies who made pot brownies in their home didn't have child-proof packaging on hand that they could just throw these into and secure it. So edibles have been here. Marijuana has been here. And the only difference is now what we can do with that is we can lab test it, we can make sure it's safe, that there's no adulterants, we can make sure that the potency means the potency limits and stays at that or below, and we can educate, this comes from up the hill, this comes from deep roots. We can educate our consumers on a proper way and give them access to ways that they can secure the marijuana. So the overarching theme there is that we will, as an industry, participate in tougher and tougher regulations to make sure that we participate in this way for kids. Traffic safety, DUIs are down overall. Alcohol and marijuana DUIs both are going down year over year in Colorado. So to say that there's a spike is disingenuous and it disagrees with the numbers, and I brought the graphs with me from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Because what's happening, again, what I said is if you're that irresponsible, you're doing it already. and the fact that what we see, if you take a look at the numbers in age, where the spike is, when you regulate this, youth usage doesn't go up because they have easy access to it now. The people who start consuming marijuana more are people in the age group 50 to 65 because they actually care about following the rules. They're actually still following the rules. And that's who says, okay, now if the government said it's all right, I'll give it a try. And to be honest, most of them don't even like it. They try it once, don't go back. So we want to free up law enforcement to focus on more serious crimes, remove drug cartels in the criminal market, create more resources for Nevada schools, create jobs, create tax revenue, and through tough regulations, which we've shown an ability to put in for both gaming gaming, prostitution. I mean, there's so many things that we regulate here that most other states wouldn't touch. That it comes back to that, oh, is someone going to cancel a conference here? Well, if you've got legal gaming and prostitution, the fact that we're regulating marijuana when we already regulate medical marijuana isn't going to chase anyone away. And that is it for my presentation. Thank you.